Here's what you need to do if you break down on a big lake. I'm going to show you where I started at, where we ended up at, how we got the boat out of the water, and we're going to go over the repair on my boat. Here's the situation. We took off in the tournament. We ran out to the main lake, had issues after a couple hours of fishing and trolling for a long ways, just beating the banks. Motor would not start. It would crank over, but it wouldn't start. This motor always fires up right away. It's a 1999 Mercury 200 EFI. I've owned a 97 Mercury 200 EFI, and they're all the way back to 92, I believe it is, or 93. They're all the same motor. So I'm going to go over with you what I done and the issues, problems that you might actually have with these motors, and tell you what we done to fix it. I'm going to show you me working on the motor and checking things out, and I'm going to tell you what I found. When we broke down out on the lake, we only had 2 fish, so I ended up just throwing those back. We wasn't going to make it back on time. Luckily, I had a guy that could bring my truck around, pick me up at a close by ramp. That's what you really need to do if you're on a big lake and you break down, is have somebody come get your keys, or have somebody keep your keys if somebody's running a tournament that helps put you in the water. Like in this case, because it's me and my son, I have a guy that's a friend of mine that luckily he puts us in the water, keeps my keys. He was able to drive around the lake probably 15 more minutes or 20 minutes to a boat ramp close to us on the water. It's the safest thing to do, because if you run a trolling motor, you're not going to make it back. I mean, those only last so many hours, and it would take a lot of hours with trolling motor to get all the way back. You would run out of juice, possibly end up drifting up against the rocks, damage your boat. Anything can happen in that situation. So if you're too far out away from your boat, just call somebody to give you a lift in or tow in or something. Even a tow in this situation would have took a couple of hours to get back. So luckily he had my keys, drove around, dropped my truck off. We took the boat to the house to work on it, and we'll show you how that went. I'm going to show you what I done to troubleshoot how to take apart the VST tank on these Mercuries, what all that you need to look for. There's only 3 things that will really cause a problem with them. If they're a bad ground, the ECU output goes bad for these fuel pumps, which I've heard is a common issue, or your VST fuel pump has went bad, or you have loss of power. That's really the only thing. If the motor's cranking over and everything's working, you should have everything. But I checked all the wiring on the water that I could get to, spark plugs, all that stuff, because I just had put spark plugs in it just to make sure that wasn't the case, and couldn't find anything wrong out on the water. I'm going to show you what I done to fix it once we got home. Okay, all you die-hard anglers, today I'm going to be changing out this VST pump on my 1999 Mercury 200 EFI. We got out on the lake last night, sat down, trolled and beat the banks for a while, got in it, was going to take off. Nothing. Crank, 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 nothing. And this motor usually fires right up. Turn the key over one time, which is first click, the VST should kick on every time, whether you got fuel pressure or not. A bad ground will cause these not to kick on. Mercuries are very sensitive to ground, so if you ever have any problems, always check your grounds. I checked as many as I could and they looked fine. Output in the ECU is a pretty common deal, I reckon. So hopefully that's not the issue. I've changed several of these out in the past, and I think that this will probably fix the issue. But for anybody looking to change one of these, you can unbolt right here and right here, and then you have another one at the bottom. There's one screw down here. It's hard for me to show you, but it's on the back side. There's a screw there, screw here, screw here, screw here, screw here, here, around through here, and one straight down in this location behind these two. I like to put a fitting here for this hose, a lot of people put just a regular old zip tie. I don't like that. It's on a fuel line. I did check the pressure on Schrader valve last night. There was no pressure coming out of this at all. But you will have to loosen the bottom one at least. Here, I suggest take a funnel and lay here, drain this first, and drain it into a jug or whatever you want to do with it. But overall, it's not real bad. Just 2 wires up here on top, here and here. Just 2 wires, nothing big. Not a bad idea to disconnect the battery either. So at least take them off and tape them off or something if you're not going to disconnect the battery. It's just you know, around fuel, one of them things. Let me get started on this and show you how to do this. One thing to add about this process, whenever you do put your funnel up here to drain this out, it might not be a bad idea to put you a coffee filter at the end of it, paper towel, something like that, and see if you have had any contaminants like lines breaking down or anything like that into your gas. That's always a good thing to check. Like I said, I've took these apart many times and there's a lot of little black pieces in there, and I've changed out all my fuel lines, but might be something you want to do on yours. Okay, I don't know if you all can see that or not, but there's very little in the VST tank that had come out. Very little black specks. Not very much. Could be from the pump breaking down outside of it. Get some rust on it. But very little on there. And also, you don't have to take that little screw all the way out, but putting the coffee filter on there, if it don't get hung in your funnel, it would catch the screw. So anyway, it's just a good idea to do that and check. Like I said, I'm not sure if you can see that all the way really good, but there's a few little black specks there. Nothing major. Okay, so I got these wires off the top. They're not going to have power to them unless you got the key turned on, so I didn't worry about disconnecting my battery. As you can see, the positive side here broke off, so I had to put a new ring terminal on it, and it don't really matter. I do have to get this nut off here because, well, that's the only way you can really get this thing apart, is to drop it down on the inside. So on to the next step. Okay, so I had to take a break. It's 86 degrees, sunny. My phone overheated out there in the sun at the boat, so had to take a break. Parts of the taking the VST pump off, I'll go and show you where I'm at right now and how I got to that point. Okay, so before my phone gets hot again, I do have a tip for you. When you drop this VST tank down, you'll want to be very mindful of this pin right here on your float. This pin will actually fall out and go down, so make sure that you're really careful with that pin. It just sitting there. I did have a problem getting the pump out. As you can see, the way the tops of these are made, there's actually a pin that goes on top of it. Now your new one should come with it, but the problem that I came into with these threaded on pins that go through the top right here is it came loose from the pump. So I ended up having to, it's really difficult because of the spout that comes down right here, this fitting, it's made on there, whatever, it's hard to get up there with, on the bottom side with a socket, but I was able to get a hold of it with one socket deal and another socket deal, this one and this one, and be able to twist it in two and get it off there. But I'm gonna start putting this back. I did fix my terminal, just crimped another one on there. I do suggest crimp instead of just putting a wire around it. You don't want that to be loose. So let's get back at it. Something I will note, if you try to take the VST tank down and it doesn't want to come down, the metal flange part around the bottom of the VST pump actually seats really tight down in that tank. and that's to keep pressure, from it falling down into the bottom. Even though those things are threaded on and all that stuff at the top where your wires go, it's still got something to hold it so it doesn't wiggle and cause problems, break off something, whatever. So if you have problems getting your VST tank down, it's because of that metal flange at the bottom, that where it seats inside the VST tank to keep it from moving. Don't be afraid to just pull down a little bit, on it, wiggle it as you're trying to get it off, and it'll come unseated, and you'll be able to take the bottom of the tank off. Okay, so here's your new pump. Comes with these two extended things. The filter part, if anybody is wondering about how to get this filter off and what it looks like, it's a really crazy looking little ordeal the way they've done it. It's right here. See how it's got this little hook right here? That actually twists and locks it in, and the way that you get that off is that you twist it and it actually moves out of the way. You see that? So you can actually twist that, take this whole deal apart, clean your filter out if you wish, put it back on. It does pop off on the bottom side, I believe. But anyway, it's a real weird setup. There's several pieces that goes with this. It snaps it on, so if you have any problems, that's why, because it's made really weird and comes off really weird, all that. Anyway, we're gonna put this new one on and see if we got her fixed. Okay, something to note, this top part here is made with a little bitty flange sticking out on it. That's because you will want to put this in just like that, and it's made that way. That's the way it come out of the box. Your little port on the right side here will go toward the back side of the motor when you put this in. Okay, so at this point I'll put the new pump on, hook the wires up to it without putting the tank all together and everything, just to make sure the pump was going to kick on. And I went over, turned the key to the first position, which should have kicked the pump on, and it did not kick on. So I walked around and was shaking wires just to see if there was a loose connection, and I heard an electrical short. That's why that I recommended earlier that you disconnect all your wires from your battery and everything, even though these wires don't have any power until you turn the key over to the first position. It's because you could have an electrical short. Okay, since I couldn't see where the wires went, they actually was behind the ECU that went over to the VST pump. I decided to take the ECU off, swap it out. It's 2 bolts, 1 plug, and just see if the output on the ECU was bad. And here's what I found. So I found the problem. The wires going to the VST had wore right here behind the ECU. I thought the ECU might be bad. It still might. I'm going to take and fix these wires and see what we got. And if not, I have another ECU that I can throw on from my old motor, and hopefully it didn't mess nothing else up. But that's what I found. Okay, so I fixed the wires, put new butt connectors on. I was kind of in a hurry because I was supposed to go fish tournament, Tuesday night tournament, with my buddy Hardwick 606. Me and him had already planned on going, and I don't back out on tournaments. I knew I figured out the issue, called him, told him, I won't have to put the boat back up and fix it later or anything like that. I'll definitely be there, whatever. So I fixed the wires, turned the key to the first position, VST pump come on. So I was pretty sure I had fixed the issue, but just in case, I went ahead and I started the motor for about 5 seconds. Yeah, I know it was out of water, but I didn't have time to do that. So I had to finish fixing the motor, put everything back together the way that I took it apart, which I showed you earlier in the video. It goes back together just like, that came apart. So I fixed all that stuff once the motor started, and I knew everything was good. ECU output wasn't bad. Nothing else would short it out, causing it not to work. So should have the problem fixed and should be good to go. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments. Please subscribe. I appreciate you. Give me your time. I appreciate all the dedication to the channel. And we'll talk to you soon.